Okay, Kevin, so seems like people in Europe like to walk, huh?
Yes, this is very much, it's very much a walking city, and it's very much a cycling city.
Yeah.
There's bike lanes, as you noticed, everywhere. I think I pulled you out of one earlier.
Yes,
to
thank
make
you.
sure that you, make sure there's not as many cyclists now. It's a little colder, but it's definitely this is definitely a busy place in this time of year for
Yeah.
people walking all over.
Yeah, I love the walking culture. Definitely miss it back in the States. Yeah, amazing. But it's nice to sit down for a second and maybe we can get a little bit into something that we touched on earlier, which is finding the balance between tradition and innovation. I feel like Vienna's got it covered pretty well, right? But how do you find that balance within training?
Well, it's a great sort of metaphor, right? It's a great analogy of this city that's based in such history and tradition, and it has that foundation, right? But it's also kept up and modernized in very obvious ways and in very subtle ways, right?
Yeah.
Keeping that core foundation. And training is the same way, right? Training, you want to keep the core foundation in any training. Your focus is always, safety, it's respect, and clarity. You've got to have clarity of message, right?
Yeah.
And then alignment with your policy, right? It's really important to make sure that you are delivering the message that aligns with the policy.
Yeah, and actually just to touch on that briefly, as I work on the litigation side of things, this is, again, one of the issues that I see quite often where the policy, the message within the policy does not correlate with what is within the training, which doesn't look great in litigation, but also sends the employees a very confusing message.
Well, and that's where, there was either a disconnect in the beginning or they didn't keep up with the evolution, right? Things change. Everything changes. Look at the threats that we have today in our businesses and our organizations. When I was first starting out here, we didn't have the word active shooter or active threat. Someone with a gun in a business or in a market or anything else, you just didn't hear about it frequently enough to think that it was an issue.
Yeah.
You certainly didn't dedicate training hours to it, right? And all of that has evolved. The culture and the way that we handle de-escalation. I mean, did people get ticked off back then? Of course they did.
Yeah.
But it's just in a different place. So, and technology has changed. Look at the things we have today that we just didn't have, years back. I didn't have a cell phone the way I have one today, right? I didn't have a computer in my pocket. I certainly didn't have drones and and self-driving cars and everything else, right? So as everything has evolved, we've had to change our messaging, and that's part of that alignment with the training. When the problem that you're talking about is when they got out of line and they broke the system. The system didn't work anymore. They didn't have everything connected.
Yeah.
And that's where you get yourself in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, again, innovation is great, the phones are great, the technology is amazing, but, a lot of our clients and just industry members are cautious about new tools, especially AI-driven technology.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that as far as impact on AI on training and the need to still retain the sort of the human in the process?
Oh, absolutely, because AI isn't perfect. Now, people aren't perfect either, right?
True.
But you do have people who have that expertise and have that experience in much like IntelFusion, right? You've got different segments that have different experts, right? And you've got to have that human element, because if you just go to an AI engine online, and I won't pick on any one of them in particular and get myself in trouble,
Yes.
but if you just go to an AI engine and, say, give me a training program on X, right? AI is not always right. And a lot of times it leaves out key points that a practitioner or someone who's an expert, right, would recognize right away. So you can't remove that human element and just say, give me this list and I'm going to use that to go train my people.
Yeah.
You still have to have the experience and you still have to bring in the expertise to be able to validate and then create that program. And of course, just because they spit it out, it may not align with your policy. And if your policy messaging is different than your training messaging, that's where people get in trouble, and that's where you lose your connection with accountability. You can't hold people accountable if they're learning one thing and your policy is another.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, I will say on AI's behalf, there are fantastic opportunities with the way that AI generates certain content, the way that AI can be used for some of the development tools when it comes to And I know there's a lot of people who would get a little upset about this, especially in the world of, you know, acting and voiceovers and things like that. But you can do voiceovers, you know, using AI. You can use AI characters, you know, in the training scenarios. The level of animation even that has made things look so realistic, and being able to use AI tools to help develop that, it gives you a high quality product, a great message, and it lets you deliver something that is relatable, you know, still.
Yeah, and something you just said resonated with me, going back to the, you know, you can generate something in an AI tool. You can use an industry standard, because there's associations out there that create industry standards for procedures, but everyone is a little bit different. Even just within retail, you have different risks within different sectors, you have different tolerance thresholds, so no one really should be taking the generic output out there and just applying to them. I think the word custom is key here. You need to customize.
Well, you know, you and I talked about this earlier too, about knowing your audience, right? Just because they spit it out doesn't mean it's going to resonate with your audience.
Yeah.
Who's your audience? That's one of the key things that you have to know first, right? Who am I delivering this message to? And then what's the best medium to get them to be able to see it and to absorb it and to start to make it into a habit, right?
Exactly.
Because it's that repetition and it's that reinforcement. It takes it from being, you know, ticking the box to becoming something that actually is built into their everyday normal activities.
And to me, really the most effective, or perhaps the only way to accomplish that, is to involve a person, an actual expert in the process.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. Robots are going to take over a lot, but they're not going to take that over just yet.
Thankfully.
Yeah. There's a lot of common sense
Yes.
that needs to come into play there as well, and that it gets left out of some of that, some of the AI pieces.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. Now that we've taken a little break, I think I'm ready for another walk. So let's keep exploring.
All right, let's do it.